Morning. It's Friday, July 30th, and I now see in reading an article yesterday that we have come to an agreement, not voted on yet, but we've come to an agreement for a $1 trillion infrastructure bill. And that's a starter package. Package is much smaller than the $2.3 trillion plan that Biden had originally proposed. And it would provide about $550 billion in new federal money for public transport, roads, bridges, water, and other physical projects over the next 5 years. That's according to some White House fact sheet. And that money would be put together through a range of measures, including repurposing stimulus funds already approved by Congress. Now, I'm thinking that we're a huge country, 3,000 some odd miles across. I don't know how many miles of roads we have. I don't know how many bridges we have in this country. I don't know how many miles of railroad track we have. I can't imagine that $550 billion is enough to take care of all of those needs, especially when you consider that we're going to spread that spending over 5 years. That's like $120 billion a year. In my mind, that's bupkis. That's bupkis. And this whole issue of paying for this thing is another thing that bothers me. We have not considered how to pay for this thing, for the entire package, whether it's $550 billion or $2.1 trillion or whatever the number turns out to be. Because this is not the end of infrastructure. This is just a starter. But in the back of my mind, I've got to know how we intend to pay. We gave a monumental pay cut a couple of years ago under the previous administration that benefited all the corporations and very few of the middle income and below people. So in my mind, the first thing I would do is reverse that pay cut. Put it back to where it was. I don't care what the percentage is. You put it back to where it was. Because in my mind, the 35% was a figure on a piece of paper. The corporations were not paying 35%. Consider the fact that they were hiding money offshore and doing many, many things to avoid paying taxes. In my mind, corporation makes money no matter where they make it. If they are a U.S. corporation, then they have to pay U.S. taxes. And if they are a foreign corporation based in this country, they have an office in this country, they ought to be paying taxes for that in some way, shape, or form also. And the problem with the tax code in my mind is not the rates, because the rates don't mean anything. It's the exemptions that mean something. That's why corporations were not paying the listed tax rate. They have 192 exemptions that have been on the books for 100 years. So those things should be done away with, and then we would have money to pay for infrastructure, because then corporations would be paying a much fairer share of their responsibility. And another thing we have to consider, the government's misuse of funds at every level. We probably have a surplus of people working in the government. There are many jobs that probably are unnecessary at this point in time. And there are budgets that are overblown. But nobody's really looking at that stuff. We do not have a true system of auditing the expenses of any governmental department. And I can tell you that school districts and places like that are major offenders. Just here on Long Island, we have 132 school districts. Do we need 132 different school districts? And the unfortunate thing about all these different school districts is that each one of them has its own salary level for teachers, and they pay taxes in each municipality or county or whatever way you want to talk about paying taxes, town taxes, etc., to fund these school districts. And in some way, shape, or form, do we need 132 school superintendents on Long Island making $250,000 apiece? Do we need all of the assistant superintendents making, $150,000 a year? No. And that's a classic example. All through many governments, there's waste. There's a lot of waste. And it's that waste that should be put to work on the roads and the bridges, etc. The manpower that's needed to do these jobs. We should be looking at the people who are collecting welfare or collecting some other kind of federal assistance. And if they can work, then they should be put to work on these projects too. We cannot afford to piss away money, to have this thing come in over budget. We have to use every possible method to get these roads and bridges fixed, along with the internet and along with the medical facilities and the child care facilities that have to be taken care of. So this is not a $550 billion project. This is going to cost probably close to $3.5 trillion before we finish putting all the pieces together. And that's okay. I don't have a problem with the cost. I have a problem with paying for it. And I have a problem that we ought to make sure that everybody pays their fair share. And many people should pay more than their fair share because they've been getting away with murder for the last 40 or 50 years. So Biden knows he hasn't gotten everything he wanted, and I applaud him for making the deal. But this is something that he's going to have to continue to work with to get all the pieces finally put in place. And believe me, identifying all of the areas that need to be covered under this bill is a monumental task. And it's made more monumental by the fact that there are many who don't consider things that they want to put into this bill as infrastructure. So that's a whole other fight. What is really infrastructure? It's very easy to identify it when you're using nails and wood and concrete and everything. But when you're thinking about facilities that are there to help people and stuff like that, the building is infrastructure, but a lot of the other pieces that need to be put in place are not considered infrastructure by many. So put this whole package together. We have the project. We have the pieces. We need to pay for it. All of those things are going to need a great amount of thought. And somebody who thinks outside the box should be leading this project. We do not need a handful of politicians who have their fingers in everybody's pocket running this show. We need independent free thinkers to work out all the pieces here. So I will leave you with that. And hopefully you will think about it tonight when you're lying in bed and you'll lose an evening's sleep, maybe, if I'm lucky. Okay, that's enough for today, and I will see you tomorrow in the morning. Bye.